have 40 minutes, and we already spent 7 of them. So we will shoot away. The first question, as a matter of fact, no, I promised Gustavo to start. You wanted to say something.
You put me on the spot, right? Okay, so Gustavo Montero, I'm an asset manager. We invest in technology companies and AI among them. So I was just reading the questions before coming here, and I'm trying to give you some real stuff and not just the blah blah that an engineer will give you and nobody understands. So I went into the questions and I found out what my clients are doing, what my clients are asking for. So this is the market. So the first question was, where is AI going? And this is what my clients are asking us to do. First of all, that we move from experimental to essential and to real business solutions. AI has stayed for a long time in sort of a nebulouse that nobody understands. There, what are they asking for? Solutions for data wrangling. We have massive amounts of data everywhere. We really don't know how to deal with it. So one of them. The next one is obviously enterprise automation. We spoke a lot about yesterday, particularly with the competition, so I'm not going to get into it. But the next one is work on supply chains. They want investments in something that makes supply chains more efficient. And then, one thing that surprised me when I was looking into the files, they're looking for natural languages generation into coding. In other words, for most people, it's very difficult to code, for 99% of this world. So they want to move from natural languages, me speaking to you, and this becomes a code somewhere, and it solves a problem. The next question was very quickly, is this a boom or a boost? Is it going to go right or wrong in terms of business? Most of our clients think that this is the next investment. And the essential part they're looking for is where blockchain is marrying artificial intelligence. That's where they are now putting most of the investments. The thing is not going to happen here, by the way, just for all of you to know immediately, is how much artificial intelligence will get into the metaverse. That's not going to happen because we're not ready. We don't have the engineering to do it. And anybody that tells you that we're going to take an avatar and go and buy a McDonald's next month is not going to happen. It's going to take a long time. And then the last point, very quickly, is there anything sort of delaying the development of artificial intelligence? And this was interesting what my clients are saying. They're looking for artificial intelligence that inspires trust. In other words, artificial intelligence right now does not necessarily inspire trust. Then, they're very concerned about which responsibilities we will give to artificial intelligence. In other words, how much you let artificial intelligence run your life or your business. And the last one, which was really surprising to me, but someone mentioned it in the prior conversation, is which professions will be disappearing because of artificial intelligence. We spoke about that. Anyway, so this information comes from the market directly, all right? Mm-hmm. So that's my initial point.
Amazing. That was a good kickstart with some real examples of your getting feedback from your client. That's very good. The next question I would like to ask Viz. And this is a good segue actually to the next question. What role do regulators have to play in the development and deployment of AI? What do they need to look out for?
Good afternoon, everyone. Honestly speaking, I think the regulators, for once, actually, I believe, and push for the regulators when it comes to AI because information is everywhere now. And as you can see, when it comes to data ethics and the AI, in terms of the thought process, the algorithms that are being entered, is there bias? Is there gender control in the selection? Regulators truly have to get involved and say, where are we going with this? Who's on the panel or who's on the decision making? It cannot be a team of all men, for example. It has to be mixed. You cannot go and take an AI from another country and implement it in your own. You have to truly build it from within. Just like companies, you go and buy an AI, and if you think it's going to do all the work for you, you're completely mistaken. Just like if you take a consultant from outside and that's going to give you a solution, there's no such thing. You truly need to monitor and see what you want out of it and what's it controlling. The regulators also have to see where's the data being stored. Storage of data cannot all be centralized to companies outside of your countries. I think in the GCC, they're taking a much more serious look at it now, especially Saudi Arabia, for example, now has a new mandate that in the next 4 years, all the data has to be within the kingdom. And they're building almost 18 billion riyals worth of new data centers. So they don't want the data going out. And if you're the Googles or the Amazons or anything, you have to be in kingdom. And I think this is very important because data mining is being collected every day. If you're wearing any kind of digital watch, your data is being given for free. And they're collecting it and selling it. And this is where I think all the regulators have to come in and say, hey, what are we doing? Are we protecting the rights of individuals' data being collected? Where is it going and what's being done with it?
I think, thank you very much for that, Vis. I mean, working for the government myself, we still have the criteria that we have sovereign data. So although probably a lot of the data centers around the world are really, really safe, we still insist the data has to be here. And the big tech companies have followed suit, and I think it was Amazon and Microsoft that just opened their data centers here. But I think also the question played a little bit, without going too dark right now, is there's a movie called The Social Dilemma on Netflix, where you see how we can abuse the use of algorithms. But we won't get too much into that today because we can have a panel just on that, I think. Okay, the next question is for Ram. AI has long been used in common business processes. Can you give us some examples, some of these everyday business processes?
Perfect. So good afternoon, and thank you, Hans. So I am RAMPRAKASH, so I have been building AI for the last 10 plus years. Much before this whole wave of new AI summer started. It was called by different names in 2011, probabilistic programming, Bayesian programming, and then this whole notion of AI started taking off. One thing that I've observed over the years is the consumer space is always ahead in technology, and the enterprise or business space, the B2B software it always has a late mover advantage, right? Think about it. We didn't have a lot of enterprise mobile apps, like let's say 5 years ago, but today a lot of enterprise work gets done on the mobile. At the same time, AI, when it comes to consumer tech, is far ahead. We all have smart speakers, which are technically smart microphones that just listen to all of our conversations and then strike back a conversation with you. Or, we have this whole business model where you don't pay for your search engine, you don't pay for your social network, but instead you give back a lot of your personal data, and then it has become a $1 trillion, very successful business model. Moving to the enterprise, that is not the case. Most of the time, you don't have gigabytes or terabytes of data. You probably have 4,000 rows of data, 5,000 rows of data, which is like a few kilobytes at the best. So, and the quality of your prediction, again, is very important because one wrong friend recommendation or one wrong thing to buy in your e-commerce network isn't a very big deal. But let's say, especially we build tools for IT, mission-critical tools. Let's say I deploy a model for outage prediction. One wrong outage prediction is going to ask people to turn this AI system off. In fact, we faced it. The first AI feature we launched was an outage prediction module. 15 days later, the first inquiry that came in was, hey, how do I turn this off? Because the business has been building around that process for like years together. We were retrofitting AI into a tool that was existing for the last decade, and engineers who have worked on the same systems over years. And also there was a neat hierarchy. right? Let's say I'm going to accept a friend request on social network. I'm not answering or I'm not answerable to anybody. But let's say I'm adding more servers because an outage was predicted in my IT system. Then I'm answerable to my boss. It gets logged. I'm answerable to my teams. So basically, we have moved from process automation to decision automation in business. Now, this decision automation has to be a process-driven one because there is a hierarchy, there is a workflow. Now, one place where we see is there's a lot of explainable AI coming in. In fact, our AI usage went up by 76% after we started adding explanations wherever possible to our predictions. And interestingly, the name of our host today is Hans. So I hope, in case you didn't know the clever Hans story, there is this horse from Germany, right? I think it happened in the ancient times. The word was out that this horse started doing mathematics, right? So mathematicians from all over the world flew into Germany, and when you ask the horse what is 1 plus 3, it would tap its leg 4 times. When you ask it what is 2 multiplied by 3, it would tap it 6 times. So apparently people were shocked, and how was this horse able to do all the mathematics? And then there were some clever psychologists who came in, and they removed the person who was managing the horse. Maybe he was giving the horse some tricks to stop when it reached the answer. But still, the horse was able to figure out the answer. Apparently, what they did was they started tying the horse's eyes and ears, right? So now it became clueless. So it so happened that the horse started observing its surroundings, and when you ask what is 2 multiplied by 3, when the answer is closer to 6, it looks at the changes in the people's faces around, not just its owner, but everybody around, and then it just stopped there. So today's AI is more like that. It is a very correlation-first AI. I see a lot of business processes where there is causation that is necessary, especially in IT systems. Let's say I'm predicting this outage. Why am I predicting it? I am predicting that this file is a malware. Why am I doing it? Because the last time this happened. So we see a lot of business processes and a lot of investments going towards a causation-first AI that works on very little data, because enterprise might not be able to afford the huge data sets that the consumer space is affording. So basically, I see this as automation, decision automation in whatever domain you are, whatever area of expertise, what your business is. I see decision automation coming in with a tinge of causation and low training data required to train the model. That would be my points.
Excellent. I think we have a comment from your side, Wes?
To add on top of that, I think AI, as a use case, I can tell you, for example, even in the construction industry today, in safety, it's taken a big toll, and it's helped a lot in assessing for example, all the labor at one time. What's their body temperatures? What's the heat index? If someone is dehydrated, you can be monitoring them from your office. 5,000 people, 6,000 people.
I'm getting scared. You're looking at me all the time. Are you afraid I'm going to fall off the chair or something?
No. And this is, I think, the real use case of AI, or even surveying and checking out the floor plans on your assessment. You don't need the human error factor anymore. It's very accurate, and it's taken really big impact. But at the same time, sometimes you may have the greatest technology in AI, and you cannot use it because the governments are not ready yet. For example, when it came to the e-invoices and scanning automatically, payments going through, you have it in your company, but your suppliers and everyone else doesn't. And then once the government starts to take in, that's when. So you can have the greatest technology, but it can't be implemented. That's sometimes some of the problems. But I can tell you, for example, now, even in Saudi, which I'm very familiar in, it's really picking up, and it's solving a big problem where there's not only millions, but hundreds of millions of dollars lost a year in the problem of invoicing. So I think this is another use case with the AI that they're really doing a great job in.
As a matter of fact, it just made me think about one of our new visions. I'm working for something called DeepTech. Dubai Technology Entrepreneur Center, and we have a new vision called DTES, Dubai Technology Ecosystem. And what we're going to do going forward is we want to become the living lab of Dubai. And in doing so, we will create subgroups, sub-ecosystems, where we then will take government entities to help us in a steering group. And then for each ecosystem, we will have operators where we innovate, where we test products, but at the same time, we have the regulators in play. So that once something is ready to be deployed in the market, the regulation is following suit, which we all know has not happened in the past. With crypto is another example where it took years and so on. And so I think there's a need for that. Gustavo, you want to?
I just wanted to comment on the regulation. Again, I'd like to go back there because I think it's key. We live this obviously in the blockchain environment and in the cryptocurrency environment. We're not regulated, and it is a problem, I believe. But in the case of IE, I think is more critical because some of the functions that we used to do be done by humans, like medicine and doctors, are now going to be done by machines. So the regulatory environment needs to be up to speed there, because if the machine made a mistake in an operating room, who are you going to sue? The machine and put it in jail? It's essential that we have that very clear before we move forward, particularly in sectors such as health. Other ones are not as critical, but I think that one needs immediate regulation because we're already using some level of artificial intelligence in operating rooms, as we all know.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to compliment.
So, and the next, thank you for that, Gustavo. The next question is obviously something that's on the mind of many of the startups that are also here today, and it's directed to Sonali. And anyone else can then comment on that, because I think we are all investors and whatnot. So, Sonali, how do you evaluate AI startups or businesses as such?
Right. So we typically use 2 or 3 metrics. The top one is whether your solution really needs an AI. Because if it's prediction-oriented or recommendation-oriented, do you really need AI, or a heuristic model would very well just serve the purpose? Whether your end user needs predictability or transparency more than intelligence. Because if it's the former, then maybe AI is not really going to generate the best solution for you. So what exactly you're doing is AI solving that purpose better than anything else, is what we analyze first in startups. The other thing is just the AI user fit. So while you might have a solution that's solving one of humanity's perennial problems, but that's not enough, because at the end of the day, whether you have analyzed what the adoption is going to be like, and so that's going to determine your product market fit. Because whether it's automation technologies or augmentation technology in AI, the product market fit has to be right. So in automation technology, are you targeting your end customer at the right level of hierarchy so that there are no joblessness fears, and so your product never moves from POC to adoption at all? In augmentation technology, have you really determined whether your end user has the capability of getting trained on this AI-human interaction that's going to make your AI work well? And is your UX rich enough or capable enough to make this easier for the end user? So this sort of AI user fit, I think, is so important for startups to work well in the long run. And the third thing is where AI is being used to completely replace the current models. So, like what Gustavo just said about medical technologies. So deep learning being used to generate novel medical diagnosis. So while deep learning is currently being used, FDA has actually approved certain AI algorithms to be used in medicine, etc. In such start, so there is a lot of benefit for such technologies, but what are the risk management structures that the startup is putting in place is what we ask in these in these type of startups. So these are the three things I would say that we look at to really gauge whether we want to invest in such a startup or not.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You wanted to comment on that or add to that? Yeah.
I'll just add to that because I find your question is very, very interesting. And
cannot hear
it's
anything.
very difficult to answer because all the factors that Sonali talked about are quite relevant. But when we start actually evaluating a startup or a company which is in the AI domain or any form of AI domain, it varies from industry to industry. And what are the use cases, which she touched upon as well? What are the use cases or the sub-segments of AI that we're talking about? The approach, it changes significantly across industries and across the sub-segments of what do you mean by AI. Right now, there are a lot of people talking about hyper-personalization. There are a lot of people talking about productizing certain elements of AI. Now, and of course, there are multiple other trends as well. But the key to remember is that, unfortunately, there is no AI to evaluate AI. That's a real challenge in the VC industry, and people are using their best guesses to evaluate AI.
Okay. I guess the next question, I guess Chirag and Sonali would also look at this. Since we are in a difficult situation, we are moving into a bear market. The question is, of course, how long is this going to take? Are we going to get out in Q1? So what's your investment strategy, especially pertaining to AI-related investment opportunities? There's diverging opinion here. That's good. Should we start with Sonali and then you comment on that after? Okay.
So I think AI is not a new phenomena. You know, it's been there since 1950s and it has had its winters as well. But one thing that has been constant is the regular advancements. Because at the moment where AI stands, it can handle much wider tasks. The data has almost exploded. There are no predetermined set of rules. The algorithms are not simple anymore. So there's this innate intelligence that is expected out of AI right now, rather than learned intelligence. Also, there are a lot of AI applications like speech to text, face recognition, etc., which have already been democratized for reuse. So given that, I think the bear market doesn't affect our AI investments at all. It's just that we are just going to look deeper, analyze the startups on those three things that I mentioned before, much more rigorously.
I'd just like you to know that I deal with the markets every day. There's no such a thing as a bear market. It doesn't exist. What only happens is that economic resources move from one industry to the next. Ironically speaking, if you wanted to have a great investment today, invest in any company that is producing tanks or airplanes to go to war. That's a great market today. I don't do it, but it's a reality. So it's just a question of where do you put the line and what are you trying to achieve at the end of the day. As you very well said, face recognition and things of that sort that are used via AI today are great investments because we're moving into a totally secure or securitary world. That's where we're going to. So really there is no bear market. It's just where is the market going to, and that's where your investments have to follow. Same thing is for AI.
But surely you would agree, I think that, first of all, that was an excellent, fresh take on the otherwise rather gloomy, trends that we are hearing in the market. Or what was I going to say? But surely you see that we kind of need to have a reset, especially on the valuations.
No. no.
You don't think so?
No. You will see some companies' valuations going skyrocket high. I mean, try to invest in a company making tanks now to go to Ukraine. As cynical as it sounds, that's where the money is right now. The military, complex of companies, including everything that goes with AI in it. So really, no, I don't think so. I think that in every market situation where you have huge losers, you have massive winners at the same time. And just to give you an example, we manage crypto assets. Last week, as all the crypto assets were crashing, one of our strategies, the mining rig, the same day everything was crashing, was giving 50% return per year. It's just a different strategy. Money's moved from there to there the same day. So, go ahead.
Excellent.
You want to say
That's
something?
good. Okay, now we have nodding heads here. That's interesting. I don't know if we have time for questions later on, but maybe that's something, maybe there's somebody in the room who wants to challenge that. I think it's really refreshing. It's really nice. Now let's move on to the trends. I don't know if you want to take that. What trends are you observing when it comes to AI investments, particularly in this region here?
There are three segments.
I think you need to speak a little louder.
Okay. I'm going to break down this question for trends in three parts. First is the trends from the government perspective. From the government perspective, especially for this region, it's amazing to see how fast governments are moving to come up with the AI regulations, policies, and frameworks. And it's absolutely amazing what they're doing. Now, that's the government part of it. Then there are corporates. Now, corporates, even though everyone is talking about hyper-personalization, productization, I see corporates running in all different directions. There are some who understand and adopt it, some who pretend to understand and adopt it, and some very openly say that I don't understand and I don't care. And that's quite prominent in all new technologies or the sub-areas of AI as well. And then the trend is for the investors, VCs, private equity. They are, again, it's like a mixed feeling. If you would have asked me this question probably 2 months back, I would have said that all VCs are super positive about it. All VCs believe it's going to be like $1 trillion industry. All AI companies are going to grow and become like $1 trillion companies. But in the last 2 months, with the market corrections happening, so even though I hear Gustavo and I understand his perspective, a lot of VCs are also cascading the impact of the market on the AI companies. And suddenly the valuations, the way they define the valuations, or everyone defines the valuation for AI, has suddenly changed. And I would say that these trends we are yet to see the real impact of that. But in the last 2 months, from the mode of VCs saying, yay, let's go for the AI, and we are all up for it, it has become, oh, let's see how the AI goes. How are you different? Isn't everyone doing the same thing? What's your sustainable competitive advantage? All these questions have suddenly become very prominent.
I'm sure somebody has some opinion to that.
Just to add on top of that, I think it's more that there's so much saturation. I think that's the key. At the beginning, everything's new. People are dumping into it. I mean, look at the Web3. Within a year, what happened? For me, Web3 has been around for a long time, but because of crypto and gaming and everything together has given it its push. And I think AI is the same. And there's no one AI that people will just invest as a centralized thing that can boom. Everyone's doing their own thing, you know?
It reminds me of a story that happened to me last week. I work a lot with Wall Street for various reasons. So one of my colleagues in Wall Street called me and at the beginning of the day told me, we're ruined, we've lost all our money, things are going horrible. And the next morning he called me and say, we're rich again. You know, markets have come up. So It's just the way it is.
I just think the sugarcoating of the AI and Web3 wrapping on investments is fading. You know, that's a big part. People are more aware. There's a lot out there. What is your real value now?
Yeah.
You know?
Sonali, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just want to add two things to this. One, with the bear market, the valuations, like we're discussing, you know, I feel the valuations actually are going in favor of are going to go at least in favor of the investors because they're going to get corrected at some level. And secondly, there'll be all the more focus on the fundamentals of, you know, the AI solution that the startup is offering. So, so that's why, you know, why a solution is using AI, the question is going to become even more important. So I think it's a good, you know, good market for investors because probably we are going to find the right startups at better valuations in this scenario.
Thank you very much for that. I really would like to give the audience a chance to you know, propose any questions because it's such a great panel we have here. It's not every time that we manage to put such a great group, and especially also the opinions are a little bit you know, divergent, which is good. So if anyone has a question for the panel, this would be a great time to ask them anything. It seems like, oh, there's one down there. 1 second, and you will get a mic. Please state your name and your question clearly and short, if possible.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vaibhav. I just wanted to hear maybe one very interesting or exciting opportunity anyone within the panel would have seen this year, like which would be groundbreaking in terms of innovative. Yeah, so.
Okay. Does any of the panelists know of a Gustavo is shaking his head already. Okay, we'll let Gustavo go first then.
I would just tell you, I mentioned it before, anything has to do with natural languages into code. I'm not going to give you any names of the companies, otherwise my lawyers will sue me. But I can tell you that if you find serious companies doing natural language to code, that's going to have a massive valuation in the future. Why? Because all of a sudden we just got rid of engineers. All of a sudden we don't need coders. We're going from speaking like that into a code that will tell us how to evacuate this room if we have a problem with fire. So I would say that look very carefully into that. It's coming up. When I was reading into my notes yesterday from my clients, it's coming up very strongly. Anything to do with natural language into code.
Just adding to his, the DALI 3, which you should have seen, you can go you know, say a sentence and it'll generate a digital art for you. Like let's say executives attending a AI conference, and then it'll paint something very similar. So yes, I would say that. And again, adding to that, multi-language, language mixing, different accents, sensing sarcasm, there is a lot going on in that area.
And I think just a very you know, simple application as well, just on that, conversational AI. So even that actually I would say hasn't been done as well yet. So you know, even before we go into coding and stuff like that, even conversational AI is something that I think great applications of that would be amazing.
Chirag, you have some?
I'll take this into a different direction because all the AI that you're talking about is, it's very normally, it's going to hit the market in the urban markets very soon. I'm going to talk about the rural areas. There's a lot of amazing AI coming up for the safety and security for tier 2, tier 3 cities. And if you start talking about construction tech, Industry 4.0, these two places, there is so much happening in the AI industry that it just blows up my mind. And the problems that they are solving over there are actually changing the lives and changing how we all are going to operate or live our lives.
Just to add on, because I'm focused on construction, and I can tell you there's so much happening in the sense that we will be able to replace, for example, even internally with our own AI that we're working on, instead of auditing 5% of our transactions, not necessarily financial, but even from quality perspective, safety perspective, cost control perspective, we will be able to audit, for example, 100%, right? And that's purely AI with decision making. Same thing in HR. You can replace your HR when it comes to manpower control and timesheets. We were actually ahead maybe 10 years ago when we first did facial recognition for all our labor, 5,000 to 10,000 people. It was illegal, actually. We had to still, even though we had facial recognition, the government did not accept unless someone signed manually. Where today, it is 100% accepted, and we can avoid all the middlemen that had to go out and sign and do everything. So I think technology and governments are really merging together, and it's allowing us to truly leapfrog, especially in construction, which is it's an economy on its own, you know?
Amazing. Now, I also have an example I want to bring up. Apart from this year, we've done 4 investments, and we have, and almost all of them have some algorithm in there somewhere. There's one that we're looking at that's joined our sandbox called DistiChain, which has the potential to disrupt the logistic chain, the shipping and everything, which really you can save tons of money. Another one I really want to mention, which it's really in the early stage, but if they're successful, I think it could be immensely disruptive. We all know of what has happened the past couple of years. Suicide rates are going up, people are getting depressed, and they have some algorithm. I know it sounds crazy, but they have some kind of algorithm that will help you on their app to make you happy. Yeah, I know. So it sounds really crazy, but I have a hard time myself to believe in it. But it has some way of understanding the person that's then doing different things on this app. You can do meditation, you can do different things. The company is called Sincera. It's a Russian company or Ukrainian company, I think. And it really has amazing traction. People are logging on, and the potential is that people, through using a few minutes, that was the bell, few minutes every day, can actually change your mood. So you get happy. The happiness app. Okay.
I don't know if I can just add on top of that with health tech and AI. Actually, I stumbled into one investment that came to us, and they told us to try it from Malaysia. And he said, just record your voice for 1 minute. Say anything you want. Even if you're sick, or I was like trying to break it down as an engineer, trying to figure out. And in 1 minute voice recording, it went to them in Malaysia, it was broken down. The next day they gave me an assessment just based on your frequency of your voice on your health. And they were able to come back and say, even historically, some facts. And it was like almost 80 to 85% accurate.
Amazing.
So there's a lot out there that's happening.
Yeah, so if it detects you're suicidal, you need to do something right now. Well, so I would like to thank my esteemed panelists for this great panel, this great discussion. We unfortunately just scratched the surface, of course. This is always the case. Thank you very much. Please, everybody, give them a warm applause. Thank you.